Roy
in the
Keane,
offing.
Roy Keane speaking to Sunderland. We'll get to that in a second. It's our understanding here that a man you know and I know, Steve Bruce, you know him better than me. It's my understanding he's been offered the job at West Brom. It's my understanding he'll take the job. You with me?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your take on it?
I sent him a text this morning saying, "Are you bloody mad?" And he said, "Yeah, I think I am." Not in terms of taking the job at West Bromwich Albion, but getting back into the mix after such a difficult time at Newcastle.
But is he? Look at Roy Hodgson. We'll hear from Roy later.
I mean, different dynamic, isn't it? Roy left in a different way and didn't have the same challenges that Steve had and same experiences that he's had in the last two jobs, being at Aston Villa. Last three jobs, Sheffield Wednesday was in the middle of it, of course. Look, I mean, I think he'll get them into a situation where they're far more competitive. I liked Valérien Ismaël. I'm surprised it went the way it did, but it has gone that way. And, you know, their argument about the way that the team plays, Brucey always makes the argument that he's pragmatic. He'll play with the resource that he's got. People talk about his style of football. I don't know. When I had him at Palace, he was a very forward-thinking manager that wanted to play a very ambitious brand of football, a very attacking brand of football, because we had the players to do it at the time. West Bromwich Albion have got players to be able to do that, so we'll see if that proves to be the case.
Yeah,
I think it will be a decent appointment for them. I think he'll get them closer to where they need to be than the current situation, because I think Valérien Ismaël, despite my support of him, seemed to have completely lost the way, which is disappointing because I thought we had all the credentials.
A bit, Simon. I mean, they're sixth, so they could still... I mean, they're still in the mix. They could still go up.
Yeah, but obviously their expectations were to get themselves into a situation where they were in an automatic an automatic promotion spot. They're now seemingly competing for the playoffs, which is a lottery. And the only way you go into the playoffs with any real success at the end of it is by going in with momentum.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the team that creeps into the last spot in sixth that actually ends up winning the playoffs. We certainly did in my time. So, look, Brucey will give them a different voice. He'll give them some sense. He's taken teams up out of this division. Newcastle fans can pour in with their vitriol about Steve Bruce, but he's taken teams out of this division. He's taken Hull out of the division. He's taken Birmingham out of the division on repeated occasions. So he will do something for West Brom. Now, whether it's enough is a different matter, but I think it's a sensible appointment. People will say it's formulaic, it's the same faces in the same spaces, but there'll be an outcome. Now, that outcome will be better, I suspect, than the one that the West Brom were heading towards.
And I know there is no sentiment when it comes to you. I know what you're like.
No.
You're just looking at this purely from a professional point of view. What are West Brom getting in Steve Bruce? You give it the thumbs up.
Yeah, I do. I think West Bromwich Albion, obviously is a club that I knew when Jeremy Peace was their chairman, who was a difficult swine at times, Jeremy, God love him. But, the ownership model at West Bromwich Albion, I'm not sure how steeped in football nous they are, but this is a sensible, pragmatic appointment which will give West Bromwich Albion an opportunity to punch the weight that they should be punching, because they've got the playing squad, they've got the Premier League distributions still available to them, and they should be doing slightly better. And clearly, it's the voice in the dressing room, because the playing squad's good enough to be able to compete far more extensively than they have been doing. So it's an interesting one. I think, he goes back in there. Of course, he's managed Birmingham, he's managed Aston Villa. He's going to listen to that sort of dynamic. But I don't think there's the same, sort of vitriol between West Brom, Birmingham and Aston Villa as there was between Aston Villa and Birmingham. So if he can carry that particular he can carry this one.
I mean, do you honestly think West Brom fans care about that? Where he's been in the past?
Well,
I mean, surely they shouldn't get on with it.
They will if things don't go well. They'll use that as a mechanism.
We saw that with Benitez.
But I don't think he's been particularly disparaging of the other clubs in the same way that Benitez was of Everton in the past. So I look at it and say it's a sensible appointment. For him, you tell these guys that the last thing we heard from Steve was pretty much that he'd had enough. And I said to you, listen, he'll be back. He'll go and do something different. And here he is. And it's a good club. It's a big club. It's a Premier League football club that's got the facilities and the money to be able to give him a little bit of support. There's no window changing, so he can't do anything because the window's closed. There's no ability to change the playing squad. So it'll be interesting. I'm not sure. Are you privy to the length of the contract? Have you had that conversation?
No,
okay.
I'm not yet. But certainly the indication is that he'll take it.
I just sent him a text. Literally sent him a text this morning on the way in saying, "Are you bloody mad?" And he said, "I am, yes."
Probably. Who's mad in this one? If Roy Keane goes to Sunderland, it's our understanding that Keane's yet to meet the young owner. We spoke to him the other day. It has to be remembered, Keane took Sunderland from the Championship relegation zone to the Premier League during a 2-year spell in charge from 2006. Hasn't been in management as such since he left Ipswich in 2011. He's in a bunch of assistant positions. Where's your head with that? We've got to know Roy a bit more now, watching him. on Sky Sports. Is he ready for another managerial challenge? Is this the right fit?
Well, I'm sure if he's putting himself in the mix, he's ready. I'm not sure that it's the right fit. This is a young chairman, and I'm not sure that he will know what he's getting into, because I think there was difficulties with Roy and slightly more experienced owners at the time that he's had at Sunderland and Ipswich. Roy's perceived management style is to be up and at them. And certainly, probably Sunderland need a little bit of a kick up the backside. I'm not sure. I find myself a little bit full of reservations on this one. I think there's a mix of a young chairman looking at someone that may be iconic in their playing image and once upon a time did okay in management. But I think if you look at his management record, it isn't great. It was a bit of a disaster at Ipswich, and he himself...
He had a good record at Sunderland.
Yeah, he did. He took them out of the... He had a really good record in the first season where he took them... He did something similar to what Ian Dowie did at Palace, which is took Sunderland from third or fourth from bottom in the league to promotion in the same season. And Dowie did the same thing at Palace. But he proved to be a bit of a one-trick pony, and I think in that instance, so did Roy, because I think the following season they weren't great, if my recollect is right. I think Ipswich was just a disaster. He puts it down to being sold a pup, and ultimately Marcus Evans said one thing at one stage and did a completely different thing when he was in the door. I worry for this one. I'm not sure this is the answer, but that might just be because I've got this idea of Roy being a pantomime villain on television, taking a certain stance because it separates him from the other pundits, and perhaps doing the same thing in the dugout, and also not having a particularly overly au fait chairman with the vagaries and peculiarities of these football guys.
You don't take his punditry into account when you're making a decision like this, do you?
Well, I think you take all factors into account. The primary...
Do you take into account what he says on Sky?
Well, I think you have to, because it's part and parcel of the body of evidence that you have. Because what you'll see is Roy Keane in an interview, then you see Roy Keane as a player and the reputation that goes before him, then you see him in the media, so you put all of those into your thinking. You don't necessarily give more weight to one or the other.
Yeah.
The most weight you'll give is when a guy sat in front of you. And the thing for me is, one thing you can't buy in life is experience. So you can ask somebody a question that somebody else has told you to ask them, but you can't decipher the answer properly if you haven't had the experience to understand what that answer really means.
I get what you're saying, and what Roy Keane isn't doing is speaking to Simon Jordan. What Roy Keane is doing will be speaking to 25-year-old Kirill Louis-Dreyfus.
And that's slightly my concern. Now, I don't know who this young man's got around him, what football operators he's got around him. I hope he's got the right ones, because they'll help him in the process. Because somewhere along the line, we've all got to gain experience somewhere, right? So you can't just simply say, well, he's inexperienced, so he's going to always make the wrong decisions, because, you've got some brains about you. I just worry that looking at Roy, there's no reason to look at Roy. There's no reason to look at Roy besides it's Roy Keane, and once upon a time he managed his club, because we haven't seen him do anything meaningful in the dugout for any period of time. And all we've seen and heard is confrontation, whether it's with the Republic of Ireland players, whether it's difficulties at Nottingham Forest. Nothing we've seen Roy being involved with on a managerial level, whether it be one step removed from being a manager in the last 5 or 6 years, gives you any indication that's the guy.
But you still get an appetite to work.
Well,
and that's commendable. Roy doesn't need to do that.
That's fine. And I'm not criticising Roy in any shape or form. I'm saying, of course, he's got an appetite to work. And so he should have. He's a football man. He wants to be involved in football. Otherwise, we wouldn't be seeing him constantly involved with the media. So he doesn't want to be a media person. He wants to be a football person, I suspect.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, because that's the character he exudes off the television, but that's not about what he wants. It's about what's right for Sunderland. Yeah. What he wants is irrelevant. Yeah. The fact he wants it, great, because you wouldn't want him knocking on his door and saying, "Do you fancy come and work for us?" He goes, "No, thank you."
Yeah.
But you want to see the enthusiasm for him, but for the Sunderland fans, and for Sunderland as they are now, and for this owner, given the fact this owner's got to manage him, whether you like it or you don't like it, chairmen still have to manage their managers in a certain way. And I'm not sure how you'd manage Roy Keane at this stage in your football development as an owner.
Even after everything you've been through, could you work with Roy? Could you manage him?
Well, if I appointed him and I felt that he had the juice in the interview, yeah, of course I could manage him. Whether that management would bring out an ultimate outcome that we both enjoyed is a different matter. But if I gave him the job, I'd like to think that the communication lines were absolutely explicit. We both knew where our lanes were, and we both ran down them and stayed in them.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.